Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Welcome to the regular meeting of the Board of Public Education for the City of Savannah and the County of Chatham. This meeting is live streamed. And I will first ask that this meeting has been announced. It has been? Okay. All right. We will open with our national anthem, so if you'll all stand.
Good afternoon. We are honored to have a chamber group from the Savannah Arts Academy Mastery Band. They will be performing the original Armed Forces arrangement of the national anthem today. They are led by Mr. Brian Agan, who has been teaching for 3 years in SCC PSS and 27 years total. Just a couple of side notes here. This is a representation of 13 out of 40 students who have made District Honor Band this year to be held in February. Okay, and our two guys in the center, Campbell and William, are also active participants in the Savannah Music Festival Jazz Academy as well. So would you please remain standing after the national anthem for the Pledge of Allegiance? Thank you. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Let's hear it again. I will now accept a motion to approve the agenda.
I make a motion that the agenda as printed or modified be approved with the following revisions. Deletion of item 7.19 RFQ 22-03 Design Services for Woodville Tompkins Lower HVAC Renovations Project.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor? And it is unanimous. Thank you.
Make a further motion to approve the amended agenda, to amend approved agenda to add item 9.06 Budget Amendment Project Prevent Grant.
Moved and seconded. All in favor? Okay, announcements. January 15th, of course, is the holiday for Martin Luther King Jr. Day. We have a Capital Improvement Committee meeting Wednesday, January 17th. It will be here at Whitney at 9 a.m. Tuesday, January 23rd, we have a Board Accountability Committee meeting at 3 p.m. here at Whitney. Wednesday, January 24th, we have a Finance Advisory Committee at 9. Thursday, January 25th, we have Audit Committee meeting at 8 a.m. Saturday, and note this date, Saturday, January 27th, is our Student Success Expo and STEM Festival. It will be at the Civic Center from 10 a.m. till 3 p.m., and that is Saturday, January 27th. Friday, February 2nd, at various locations throughout the district, is our Read United Today. And February 2nd is our Teacher of the Year Gala. It will be at the Marriott Savannah Riverfront from 6 p.m. to 9 p.m. And now we will have our superintendent report. Dr. Watts.
Happy New Year to everyone. Excited to provide a good news report. We have many reasons to celebrate and acknowledge all the positive things that happen in our district. And I'll start with an acknowledgement of Johnson High School. Johnson High School hosted its first college acceptance luncheon in December. This was a culmination of the hard work and dedication of students who applied to colleges early in November. During post-secondary options month, students were accepted into 52 colleges and awarded over $2.6 million in scholarships. Excellent. Also, I'd like to acknowledge and congratulate the first class of Green Heldrum House Youth Guides. Students from Savannah Arts Academy's AP US History class are volunteering to serve as docents at the Green Meldrum House, a National Historic Landmark. The students are trained to give tours and are sharing their knowledge with visitors to our city. Well done, scholars. More than 50 middle school students from schools in Savannah-Chatham County Public School System participated in the induction ceremony for our Junior Police Academy. In December, I had the honor and pleasure of being there. The program provides students with an introduction to law enforcement, which allows them to explore career opportunities that can help guide them to a future career, possibly in law enforcement. And along with that, I'd like to just say that yesterday, January the 9th, was Law Enforcement Appreciation Day. So if you have a family member or a friend or a person that you know, please reach out to them and acknowledge and appreciate them. And then obviously, we would like to acknowledge and celebrate and demonstrate our appreciation for those that serve here in our Board of Education Police Department. Yes, there's. Okay, great. 8 students in the Medical and Applied Health Professions program at Beach High School have earned their phlebotomy certification. These students have shown mastery of their skills and have worked in the on-site medical clinic in partnership with St. Joseph's Chandler Hospital, where they were supervised by an on-site nurse practitioner. These students completed their clinical rotation and all of the other necessary criteria to become certified, and they are now workforce ready. This opportunity for students is made possible through the Office of College and Career Readiness and the Career Technical and Agricultural Education programs in our school district. Also, a big hats off to Groves High School Beta Club. The Betas donated $630 collected from their Pink Out service activities. In addition, students participated in blessing bags for the homeless as a service project. Throughout November and at the beginning of December, betas at Groves collected toiletries, snacks, socks, and gloves. The blessings bags were donated to the Social Apostle for distribution in the community. Great work, Rebels. Great community service work. The Georgia Council on Economic Education announced that Woodville Tompkins High School has earned top prize in the Georgia stock market game for the third consecutive year. Student winner Jimmy Slack began the season with $100,000, and in just 10 short weeks, he turned that into $202,000 in equity. This is Jimmy's second time winning this overall state competition in back-to-back seasons of the stock market game. Jimmy and teammate Jamina won the spring 2023 competition with $248,000 in equity. Becoming a two-time winner is extremely unusual. At first in recent Georgia stock market game history, Woodville Tompkins teacher John Cook leads the students in the stock market game challenge. Way to go, Jimmy, and thank you for all the work that Mr. Cook does to instruct Jimmy and students like Jimmy. We'd like to recognize this fine student with a certificate from the board. I'd like to call Kimmy Slack forward at this time. Jimmy Slack forward.
Congratulations.
Great job.
Thank you.
Excellent.
Thank you so much. I know, right?
Jimmy got several job offers as he made his way around the country, so employment in the future will not be a problem. Speaking of excellent students, I'd like to transition now to our December Student of the Month. Our Student of the Month for the month of December is a fifth grader who attends Haven Elementary School. This outstanding student is a member of the Junior Beta Club, the Drama Club, the Chess Club, the Haven News Crew, and Girls Who Code. She has also won the Remarkable Reader Award and the Super Scientist Award. Our honoree is an exceptional student who embodies the essence of hard work, determination, and a positive attitude. She strives to do her very best and has a genuine enthusiasm for learning. With a 92% grade average, her performance in all subject areas is nothing less than impressive. School is important to her. She puts the hard work in to perform at the highest levels. She also really enjoys learning, and her thirst for knowledge is inspiring to her classmates and keeps them striving for their best as well. Listen to what Ms. Jeffries said about our student. I have so many positive things to say. From the moment she gets to school to the moment she goes home, she has a can-do attitude and a beautiful smile on her face. I was her kindergarten teacher when she first started at Haven, and now, 5 years later, I have the privilege of being her teacher for the gifted program. She was and continues to be a true leader of her grade level. She is a kind friend to all, a respectful student in the class, and a shining example to her peers. When asked what motivates her for academic success, this is how our Student of the Month replied. I am motivated to do well because I want to go to college. If I do my job at school, it also makes my mom's job easier. I want to make her happy, and I want to make her proud of myself. Happy and proud, she says. Please help me congratulate the Superintendent Student of the Month for December 2023, Nakori Morris.
She's from District 5.
She is from District 5. Nakori is taking home multiple gifts from our partners, gift cards from Members First Credit Union, Georgia Credit Union, Plant Riverside District Gelato, Savannah Music Arts Festival. Oh, she's crying. She's beautiful. The Five Spot Restaurant. Plus, she's taking home merchandise from Advertising Specialties, Savannah State University, Georgia Southern University, Gulfstream, and Bahama Joe's. Nakori and students in her English Language Arts class will receive printed copies of her favorite book, Mac Be Kid Spy, Mac Undercover by Mac Barnett, from our sponsor, eShaver Booksellers. Lastly, she is also going to take home a portrait by Upscale Photography provided by Savannah-Chatham County Public Schools. Again, congratulations, Nakori. We are so proud of you, and I know your mom is so proud of you as well.
Could you-
To your family, we'd love for you to please stand.
Yes, please.
And also the teachers
Please stand,
and staff.
family.
The teachers and staff.
And I'm going to take a personal privilege. Are you your mom? Yes. Will you please come? We want to shake your hand. Okay, and the principal.
Baby, keep being the example.
Thank you
Okay.
so much.
Y'all gonna make me cry. That's right.
Yes. You're District 5.
District 5.
I'm so sorry to prolong the meeting, but I just had to say this. She is a member of District 5, and I'm very happy about that. But I want you to catch this. She cried because we celebrated her as if she received $1 million. And that goes a long way, just telling a student how good they're doing, patting them on the back and pushing them forward into their great futures. I believe that we need to do more of that from this seat as well as from every seat in the community of Savannah-Chatham County Public Schools. Thank you.
So much. It was an honor to be able to recognize her. At this point in time, I would like to turn it over to our professional Senate representatives to see if they have an update for the board.
Well, you know, December was a short month, and we were not in school on our usual week, so we did not meet during the month of December, so no report. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. There is more coming, though. There's more
Oh,
coming.
we definitely have more to come. We'll see you in a week.
That's right. So I'll hand it back to our board president at this time.
Thank you. Oh, I mean, I'm teared up a little bit there. Sorry, guys. Mr. Attiger.
Oh, yes, thank you, sir. I would be remiss if I didn't mention our Student of the Month's teacher who nominated her is here, Miss Jeffries, our former Teacher of the Year. Way to go, Haven. All right, continuing on your agenda today as we move into the Board of Education matters, we do have two policy items to review. These are both four-year policy reviews that we concluded and are ready for presentation to the board. The first one, item 6.01, this is a first read, and there are changes that are recommended to the policy and to the regulation. When we went through this, we realized that much of the current practices that we're following under supervision of students, which interestingly is primarily about the safety of student athletes as it pertains to the heat index. And we do follow that very closely for the safety of students, primarily from stipulations of the Georgia High School Association, and also quality information of exercise science from the American College of Sports Medicine. And it has been updated to align with our current practices and best practice that we're currently doing in the school district. Exhibits have been deleted as the exhibits are determined to have been outdated and not in line with our current modern technology for tracking these procedures. First reader for the Board of Education.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm sorry. Yes, Ms. Grabowski.
So I appreciate that the importance of certainly protecting our athletes and our staff during extreme weather. On the policy, it states that the readings shall be taken a minimum of every 30 minutes. Is that regardless of the conditions, or is there, if the conditions are such that they don't have to continue to take them? Because that seems, if there's not a threat of,
So it's tied to actually the heat index. So of course, you know, when they're in basketball practice and it's November, unless we have some extreme circumstances with weather, which could happen in Savannah, they do not do it then. But it's really during the heat season.
and that was my question, really what I was getting at. Like, do we not need to have something in policy that if it's not a certain reading, that's not required?
So
If the conditions
if the
exist or something?
conditions exist, yes, we do share that in our athletic handbooks, but it's not in here, so we can take a look at.
I would suggest that
moving
as a
it.
risk.
please. Yes, move on. Oh,
Subject
I'm
to-
sorry, Howard Hall. Hoskins Brown?
No.
Okay,
I did, but I do now.
okay. Dr. Howard Hall, then Dr. Brinkman.
Yeah, my question was regarding a standardized process for documentation of the data. Is there something standardized that we're doing throughout the district that should be documented here, whether or not it's digital or manual logs being used?
So yes, they do have a tracking system where they have to track all of that information. So all of the coaches have to use that tracking system, and the ADs and athletics have access to that. Our athletic department and our school ADs.
And I know it's not highlighted, it's referenced, it's not really outlined in detail as far as monitoring or watching at-risk players, but I assume that that's from previous injuries, perhaps asthma, diabetes, high blood pressure, sickle cell, and I also, mental health, is that now becoming a major concern to watch at-risk players as well? I thought about it when I saw the reference to at-risk players.
Yes, it is, and actually, as a part of what they do with athletic training now, they've actually been bringing in trainers to work with our coaches and our athletic directors to be able to identify signs and to support those students as well as it relates to mental health, as well as we have our wellness center who's able to work with them so that they can identify those students as well. And we also monitor them based on what we have on the physical from their doctors to include all of those conditions you mentioned.
Dr. Brinkman and then Mr. Johnson.
And we're probably all just picking this regulation to death, but under number 3, I would love to see how each school manages who the coach is or the designee that is actually in charge of keeping the record, just so if an event happened, we would know who was supposed to be held accountable, who was supposed to be actually checking this. And I concur with Dr. Howard Hall on, do we have a protocol piece of, either documentation that's paper or documentation that's digital? Yeah, so that then, and if that's just spoken to in the regulation rather than just see manual, I don't know. I just think, I know we're doing this because there are incidences every year, unfortunately, across the country. So we're trying to hold people accountable, and incidences will still happen, but if we can make sure that we are doing everything we're supposed to do to try to lessen the risk, I think we should also lessen the risk on there being a hiccup and somebody not following the protocol. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Johnson?
Yeah, my question is actually on the policy, not the regulation, where it struck out the initial complete medical history and physical exam required for all students prior to participating in tryouts, practice, and games. Is that somewhere else in policy or regulation, or are we just taking that out for some reason?
So it's actually number 1 in the reg. We repeated an initial complete medical history and physical exam is required.
Okay,
for
so
all
I missed
students.
number 1 on that one,
We
thank
moved it to
you.
the reg, and to Ms. Grabowski's point about the date, it's not in the policy, but that is in the reg as well on number 3, but we can move it to more front-facing if needed.
Okay. Anyone else? Okay. Moving on.
Thank you, Mr. Board President. Moving on in your agenda, item 6.02. This is also a 4-year review. This is policy CGA, classified personnel compensation. There were no changes to policies on this 4-year review. And with that, subject to the final review here by the board, we'd like to deem this 4-year review complete per the specifications of Board Policy BDE.
Okay. Any questions? Nope. All right. Okay. This is second reading?
No, this would be the first pass of the 4-year review with no policy changes and no comments from the board. We'll deem this officially reviewed and complete per policy BDE.
Thank you very much. Okay. In accordance with Article 6 of the board's bylaws, officers shall be elected at the first meeting. This is our first meeting of the year, in January of each year. The positions are Vice President Pro Tem, Secretary. The Superintendent serves as Treasurer and Secretary ex officio of the board. The Chief Financial Officer serves as Assistant Treasurer. Each term is for a 1-year period. I will now call for a motion for the election of officers. Mr. Katchmar.
So historically, we've rotated our officer positions to give board members experience in leadership and broaden our depth. And not only because of that historic practice, but also because I think they'll make good officers. I wasn't meaning to be flippant, but I actually do mean that. I nominate Ms. Grabowski as Board Vice President, Reverend Smith as Board Vice President pro tempore, and Superintendent as Treasurer and Secretary ex officio.
Okay. It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? Great.
I just want to say that I think this has been a good practice because what it has done is given each of us a chance to be in that situation and to really understand all the machinery that goes on behind the scenes. So I think it's served us very well, and I'm glad to see us continuing it.
There not being no more discussion, all in favor? Aye. And is unanimous. Also, as is also customary during the election of officers in January, that we approve the secretary. Our secretary serving the board is Tamika Edwards. So to make that official, it's been moved and seconded. All in favor? Yes, come on.
Michelle's doing a great job today.
Yes, yes, yes. And so everyone understands this is not Tamika. Thank you. All right. Pursuant to Article 8, duties of officers, the board president shall appoint all special committees and designate the chairpersons thereof. As is customary during our January meeting, I now announce the 2024 committee appointments. Academic Excellence Chair, Dr. Tanya Howard Hall. Members, Mr. Paul Smith, Ms. Denise Grabowski, Dr. David Bringman, and Ms. Cornelia Hall. Board Accountability Committee, Dr. Dion Hoskins Brown, Chair, Mr. Michael Johnson, Mr. Todd Rhodes, Mrs. Cornelia Hall, and Dr. Tanya Howard Hall. Audit Committee, Chair, Mr. George Woods. Our members are Dr. Dion Hoskins Brown, Dr. Gertrude Robinson, Mr. Josh Keller, Mr. Richard Sanders, Mr. Mario Hilliard, Mr. Michael Johnson, and Ms. Wendy Owens. Capital Improvement Committee, Mr. Sean Katchmar is the chair. Members, Mrs. Denise Grabowski, Dr. David Bringman, that is misspelled, Ms., not Mr., Miss Cornelia Hall, and Mr. Michael Johnson. And finally, our Finance Committee, Dr. David Bringman as chair, members Mr. Sean Katchmar, Mr. Paul Smith, and Mr. Michael Johnson. And I'll accept a motion to approve.
I move to approve the.
And it's been moved by Ms. Hoskins Brown and seconded by Dr. Oh, you don't? Oh, they're appointments. Ooh. Had a surge of power there. No. So those are your committee members. Thank you. Oh, yes, delegate liaison is Ms. Denise Grabowski. Yes, Ms.
Since, and I totally agree, I feel that you and the superintendent's decision to change the subcommittee, the equity committee, into an initiative to spread equity practices across the board.
Correct.
Could you speak to that for just a minute?
Absolutely.
Because
So-
I'd like everyone to know.
Oh, absolutely,
what's going
absolutely.
on.
So in the past, we have had an equity subcommittee. Equity is something that should permeate every fiber of everything that we do in our school system. So everything will fall under equity lenses, from finance to capital improvement, academics, accountability, audit, all of it. We are totally committed to equity, and we decided that we didn't need to separate it. It needs to permeate everything that we do. So, thank you. All right. All right, I will accept a motion. Man, we're getting through this agenda today. I know, I shouldn't have said anything. I was doing so well. Okay, I will now accept a motion to approve the consent agenda. It's moved by Mr. Johnson, seconded by Ms. Grabowski. Any discussion? Yes.
Sorry, I have some edits for an item in the consent that I will pass to Ms. Finch.
Oh, okay, that's fine.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, sure. Okay, all in favor of approving the consent agenda? Thank you. All opposed? Any abstentions? And one abstention. Okay. Yes. Next to our student success, academic achievement, and life readiness, we have a quarterly report from Susie King Taylor.
Good afternoon, everybody. I am Dr. Medina, the interim school director for Susie King. Happy New Year. This is our student attendance report. It has not changed much since the beginning of the year. We are holding steady at 94% for our kinder through 5th grade and 95% for our middle school campus. Our TEKS and LEAKs are up to date, and we are currently completing our middle of year conferences. Our student discipline report is also similar to the beginning of the school year. We have too few to report for current student discipline reports. This is our iReady Reading Middle of Year diagnostic data, which I am very excited to share with you. We have seen a lot of growth and progress with our scholars from beginning of year to middle of year. This is also the first year in Susie King that we have seen progress at middle of year instead of regression. So you can see our early on grade level and mid or above grade level is at 40% from 16 in K through 5. And we also saw growth in reading at the middle school from 14 to 24%. We did have an enrollment decrease, so our numbers are not the same, but still very excited about the growth. This is our math data for kinder through 5th grade. You can see that we also showed growth and moved some scholars from 3 or more to 2 grade levels to 1 grade and early on. And we're consistent at middle school as well. And this is everything that happened in December at SKTCS. We had our scholars who displayed the most growth in iReady went to Chick-fil-A to celebrate their performance and growth. So that is them on the stairs. We had a Polar Express Day, and all of the staff dressed as characters from Polar Express, and a huge PBIS party to celebrate the upcoming holiday break. Any questions?
Any questions, anyone? Dr. Howard Hall.
Thank you for your report. I noticed on your student discipline report that is nothing being reported. So does that mean that there are no?
We have fewer than 10 to report. So we have at kinder through 5th grade, we have 6, and there are 4 in middle school.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
You're very welcome. Y'all have a wonderful day.
Thank you. We will have a report from Academic Affairs.
Good afternoon. You did receive your updated graduation cohort report. We made some additions. This is our 2023 cohort graduation rate report. Just want to remind everyone on how the graduation rate is calculated. The 4-year cohort rate computes the percentage of students who enter 9th grade during a given school year and earn a regular diploma within the 4 years for high school, grades 9 through 12, and it is adjusted based on students who transfer out during that 4-year, in or out. So basically, you have the number of students in the cohort who received a regular diploma divided by the number of students who entered the cohort in 9th grade that year, and you subtract out those students who have what the state considers an acceptable transfer code or, unfortunately, who may be deceased. And that is how they calculate the graduation rate. I want to share with you the difference between our graduation requirements and those of the state. Georgia State Board rule sets forth the graduation requirements as 23 units of credit that a student must earn in order to attain a diploma. They also provide for the fact that an LEA, a local education agency, may actually increase or require more from their students as it pertains to graduation, but they cannot do less. In our district, under regulation IHF-R2, we require 24 units of credit for a student to earn a diploma, as well as we require that they complete 20 hours of community service. So we do require the community service hours as well as one additional unit of credit in comparison to the state requirements. We also have our graduation pathway set up as a college pathway and a CTAE pathway. And the biggest place you'll see that difference is that in the state board rule, there is not a requirement around world language, and in our graduation requirements, we do have a requirement for world language. I want to take this opportunity to talk about some differences now when we start talking about the graduation rate. Well, the next few slides will talk about graduation rate versus content mastery and readiness. And so we want to point out that the graduation rate is a standalone indicator or component of the CCRPI for our high schools. Content mastery and graduation rate are two different components on the CCRPI, but we also want to recognize that they are closely intertwined, but they are not the same. So with our graduation requirements, these are the state-identified number of credits that a student has to obtain to receive a high school diploma. And as shared with you earlier, the local educational agency can require additional they can require additional units, as well as, in our case, community service. Under graduation requirements, there is no mandatory state-identified assessments for graduation. So students have the ability to take a course more than once to obtain credit, or they may have the opportunity to demonstrate mastery of specific standards not mastered to receive credit for the course. It is a standalone indicator in the College and Career Readiness Performance Index. So again, it is a standalone component. Content mastery is measured by our students' performance on the end of course assessments in high school. Those 4 assessments are algebra. That course is typically taken at 9th grade. Biology, some 9th, some 10th. American literature and U.S. history, which typically are taken in the 11th grade. Our end-of-course assessments provide information about how well the students are mastering the state-adopted content standards. A minimum score is not required for a student to receive credit in the course or to graduate high school. So while they do have to take the assessments, that is mandatory, there is no minimum score required for them to graduate from high school or get credit in the course. But the assessment does count for 20% of their final grade in that course. So there is a 20% calculation in their final grade with this assessment. It is used as the academic measure that we see on the College and Career Readiness Performance Index. I want to also point out that while when we discuss our graduation rate, we'll see the great progress there, content mastery is the area of primary focus for our high schools. It is one of our primary focus areas. Then we have the readiness component. And the readiness component for CCRPI with our high schools has 5 indicators. The first is reading at or above grade level, and that's the percent of our students in grades 9 through 12 that take American literature, and typically that's an 11th grade course. You may have it taken in another grade level, but that's the typical is 11th grade. And they're demonstrating reading at or above grade level. So that measurement comes from the American Literature Assessment in high school. Also, student attendance, and that's the percent of our students that have been absent in high school, less than 10% of the days enrolled. We have accelerated enrollment, and that looks at our 12th graders that are obtaining credit for dual enrollment, advanced placement, international baccalaureate, or Cambridge courses. Then we have pathway completion as another indicator. And with our pathway completion, that simply looks at the percent of our 12th grade students that completed an advanced academic, a CTAE, fine arts, or world language pathway. We also have the college and career readiness indicator. And that's the percent of our 12th graders that are entering our technical system of Georgia or our university system of Georgia without need for remediation, or looking at their ACT and SAT readiness score, 2 or more AP exams passed, 2 or more IB exams passed, or they've passed an aligned end of pathway assessment that results in the students receiving a national or state credential. Also, they include work-based learning and military readiness, which is measured by the ASVAB. All of those components make up the college and career readiness indicator that is a part of the readiness overall component for CCRPI for high schools. If you look, you'll see a chart that we have here. Readiness component score for the state is 71.4%. For the district, it is 65.4%. So we are 6 points behind the state. To further break down those different indicators that make up our overall high school readiness score, you have here the at or above grade level reading. The state is at 68.75, the district at 63.4% of our students at or above grade level. You see our largest area of focus within the indicators for readiness is our student attendance. And that is something that we have been working on since we returned to full in-person learning post-COVID. We also have our accelerated enrollment, pathway completion, which is above the state, and then our college and career readiness measure, which is about a little bit less than 1 point within the state's score as well. Want to point out, we included for you a 2019 retrospective, at which time pre-COVID, we were outperforming the state slightly in terms of our readiness score. And so, of course, we are working not to get back where we were, but to exceed where we were in terms of ensuring that our students are ready. So, what are we doing as it relates to supporting our students on the road to graduation? And you'll see some specific things that will directly tie to graduation that Mrs. Morrell will be sharing with you. But what I will focus on are those pieces that are part of content mastery as well as the overall readiness. So as it relates to our content mastery, because as we said, while they are different components of the CCRPI, we recognize in high school they are all interrelated. And content mastery is our primary focus. And so we have professional learning to support our staff. And so we are working on student engagement, our expectations for teaching and learning to the rigor of standards, with professional learning around teacher clarity that focuses on critical thinking, problem solving, and establishing strong learning intentions, among some other items. And we're working to ensure that our teachers are trained in the use of the new math standards as well as implementation. That includes modeling and use of math manipulatives during that training. We have the Light Cell Literacy Program in our high schools, and that informs interventions and supports for our students who may be struggling or not reading at or above grade level. We also have collaborative planning, and district level support is received for our schools, as well as they have academic coaches on site at many of our high schools around lesson planning, actually modeling lessons, and identifying various resources for support. We have coaching for our leaders and our instructional staff to include assistant principals and academic coaches, as well as department heads in the buildings. And then we are refining our formative assessment system for high school, as well as on the horizon, we have our secondary literacy plan under development and the textbook adoption. So our on-time support structures for readiness, which still actually also work for graduation rate as well. We have opportunities for our 6th and 7th grade students to explore career clusters and post-secondary options. We also have a high school 101 course that includes 9th grade advisement and course registration for our 8th grade students. And we also take our 8th graders on tour of high school career pathways by providing rotational field trips at the high school so that they can actually experience and see those pathways. And we have worked with our schools to design master schedules that really focus on instructional support and credit acceleration. And so our master schedules are flexible and they support students. I want to point out that students can earn 32 units of credit over 4 years of high school, but remind you 24 are needed for actual graduation. And so by having this type of schedule, it provides an opportunity for course retakes, dual enrollment, advanced placement courses, multiple pathway completion opportunities, as well as opportunities for work-based learning and apprenticeships. We have summer school that's provided for students through policy IDCA governs that. We continue with our swarm process, and we have Twilight, which provides after-school opportunities for students to attain units of credit. Our school-based supports as it relates to readiness, we have individualized advisement and counseling support services. Our counselors at the high school continue to work with students on those graduation plans to include transcript analysis as well as their advisors. Those plans, as I stated, start in the 8th grade. We have House Bill 400, which is the bridge law. It's where our 9th and 10th graders are provided the opportunity to take a career aptitude assessment. We use U-Science here in the district. Our schools provide after-school tutorial. They have additional opportunities for the recovery of standards not mastered through their school-based Twilight structures, as well as Saturday school. And while we work to help design and maximize use of the master schedule and their resources, the schools really use the master schedule for instructional support and student flexibility. Here's where you might see them double block classes to give additional math support or to give additional support for students who are taking AP classes on a 4x4 schedule so that it allows for a year-long instruction. It's an opportunity to retake courses that may not have been mastered, and they are able to provide, in some schedules, instructional-based study skills courses. Now we'll have Ms. Morrell, our Associate Superintendent for Secondary Schools.
Good afternoon. It is my pleasure to share in this slide, of course, that we are trending upward with an 89.1% graduation rate, which of course that indicates our 1.5 increase from our previous school year. We continue, Savannah-Chatham County Public School System, to outperform the state as well as our comparison group. Of course, this is the 9th consecutive year the district's graduation rate has exceeded that of the state. Savannah Early College and Woodville Tompkins maintain a 100% graduation rate. Groves, Jenkins, Beach, School of Liberal Studies at Savannah High, Johnson and Islands improved their graduation rates this past school year. Groves achieved the greatest increase with a gain of 7.5 points. Compared to last year, New Hampstead, Savannah Arts, and Windsor Forest declined by 1.4, 2.2, and 3.6 points respectively. If you bring your attention to the left side of the screen, we certainly want to celebrate not one, but 3 Gates Millennial Scholars. We have Makai West, Jordan Haskell, both representing Woolville Tompkins High School. And then, of course, Tanaya Cheeks, representing New Hampstead High School. And we certainly want to continue to celebrate those scholars because many schools and school districts don't have this bragging point, if you will. So certainly we give kudos to all of those students, and we're looking forward to more scholars, hopefully, this school year. In terms of continuous improvement strategies, of course, our schools continue to have weekly and biweekly graduation team meetings to include a review of our SWARM process that continues to be a value add and very successful on our campuses. Our school counselors, of course, have high school graduation plan meetings with students, parents, and guardians to include transcript analysis and post-secondary planning. Of course, our attendance team meetings with monitoring support and interventions is a key component. I certainly want to bring our attention back to what Mrs. Ball Oliver alluded to when she discussed the CCRPR readiness, as the attendance, of course, is one of those indicators. So with that being said, our schools are very intentional as it relates to their school improvement plans, and they certainly have strategized to make sure that that's included in regards to strategies, interventions, as well as robust supports. And of course, our town hall grade level meetings, which our students love, of course, with our administrators and our counselors focused on academic achievement. This is where there's opportunities to take a deep dive into what is a GPA, the grade point average, of course, attendance, college and career options, as well as Georgia Futures and Georgia Match. I certainly want to take an opportunity to celebrate the fact that this is the inaugural year of Georgia Match that has been launched across the state in partnership, of course, with Georgia Futures, as well as the Georgia Student Finance Commission. This, of course, very simply stated, provides our students an opportunity where they, of course, know the schools in the state of Georgia where they qualify for acceptance. Of course, they have to apply for admission, but students are able to know as early as this fall, a letter was, of course, mailed to their homes to be shared with students and parents. So now they actually know what's a good fit, what's a match for them in terms of colleges and universities. Even if they may not select to go on to college or university, they still know what's a good match, right? Based upon their GPA. And also an opportunity to save money by attending college in Georgia. And then, of course, we have our No Grad Left Behind meetings with our parents and our students. Oh, yes, this is the slide everyone has been waiting for. It is, of course, to share the class of 2024 graduation schedule. We will continue with our third consecutive year of course, with the in-market arena. We will start on Monday, May 20th, 2024, with 3 different graduations each day, of course, with the time slots at 9 a.m., 1 p.m., and 5 p.m. Then, of course, on Thursday, May 23rd, 2024, we will conclude with 2 ceremonies. Of course, we'll have the School of Liberal Studies, of course, at Savannah High School at 9 a.m., and then combined ceremonies of SELA as well as Savannah Early College at 1 p.m. Thank you. Do we have any questions at this time?
I think we do. You know what? Go ahead, Dr. Brinkman.
Thank you. I got like a couple of slides. You brought it up, but it was started on slide 3 with the graduation requirements. I get this question a lot, like we have a high graduation rate, and I always remind parents and constituents that we require 24 units. The state asks for 23, and a student that just attended normal fall and spring of each year would actually be in class and able to accrue 32, correct? Just tell me if I'm wrong. And they have the ability to go to Twilight if they needed course recovery, and that happens during the normal school year. But they also have the ability to go to summer school all 4 summers, correct? They can go after their senior year if they were not successful. And so when people want to say that the graduation rate is inflated, it's not, because students have quite a number of opportunities for credit recovery. Quite a number of opportunities for credit recovery. I think summer school, they can get 2. Yes. 2, so that's 8. Another year, 8, so there's 16. And then Twilight, I'm sure we could fill some gaps there, and I'll just say another 2. They've got like 18 credits that they could get outside of the normal school year. That's almost, wait a second, enough to graduate. So understand that these students that we think shouldn't be counted in our graduation rate are passing classes eventually, okay? Is that something it's good, we're getting them there. We would love for them to pass it the first time, so that takes us to the next slide. That fun CCRPI thing that changes all the darn time. My first question would be, are the 5 categories weighted the same? When they do like that overall readiness component score, are those 5 categories weighted the same? I don't think they are, correct?
No.
They're not, okay, good. They shouldn't be. Some of them are odd that they're even in here, like accelerated enrollment is great for some students, but I don't think a district as a whole should be ranked by that, because then we should just force students that might not be ready for AP or dual enrollment to do that. And then unfortunately they're unsuccessful, but we get to count that we had a certain number of them in, correct? Because it's not a success rate, it's just a percent that do it, which is mind-boggling. It's also fascinating to me on the college and career readiness portion down there at the bottom that the state at best is doing 52.89%. So none of us in the state are doing a good job of marking all the boxes that they have there. And that doesn't mean that the student isn't prepared for college or career. They just might not have done those things yet. People take gap years. It's a good year probably for some people to grow up in. Jimmy, who made a gazillion dollars in the stock market, and I would have loved to have given him $100 grand before those 10 weeks, might not meet any of these. I'm sure he's going to, because he's probably in one of the pathways, but he might not. But he's proven himself in that he's got some financial wherewithal that I don't understand. So again, that's a really weird one for me to talk on and think that it should be lumped into this big overall score. And then the reading at or above grade level being, that's the EOC, correct, for American Lit?
Correct, yes.
So that's all we base it off of, right? EOC. So I'm going to take like the stance that one of our directors this morning talked about, how he does a pretty good job at building bridges because he was expelled. I remember going, and I still would do it probably. You do well in the class, you've got that A, you go into, oh, this EOC only counts 20%, I don't have to pass it. Man, I need to make like a 55 on this thing to make an A in this class. Every student calculates things down that way. And other students go into the EOC and they go, I don't care, let me color a Christmas tree. So again, these numbers are just not the best way, I think, to define how successful a teacher is, a school is, or a student. So there's David Bringman's 2 cents on that.
So, I'm sorry, I just wanted...
Bring it.
Don't tell an old cheerleader coach that.
Are you a Clover?
I just wanted to actually come back and say, I wanted to clarify something, that when you see these 5 indicators, while they may within each indicator have a different calculation because of the data, across the board, the 5 each weigh 20% to make up the sum total of readiness.
Okay. So that's actually worse. And then my final thing, which is away from this, Georgia Match is great. Do we have any ability to speak to those people that have instituted that? Because it really bothers me that our flagship universities that are public do not have to participate in it. They have standards. They could have those standards inside Georgia Match. It could match with students, and it could find the student that doesn't think they're successful enough to go to a Georgia or Georgia Tech and they could get that letter. And it just really bothers me, not even just as like a board member, but as a person paying taxes in our state, that our flagship universities don't have to play the same game that's a good game as every other. And I think, is it Georgia Military? There's one other one, I can't remember, but that those two schools get to opt out. I guess they just don't have to spend the resources or the time to tell a student that took the SAT and did well and has a high GPA, they don't have to click a box and say, send a letter to so-and-so who might be from a disadvantaged family that doesn't think they could make it, but lo and behold, so if we have any voice to Georgia Match, please let them know that is a disservice to what could be some of our students that just automatically tell themselves they can't do that because of the situation of life that they're in.
So there are 3 opt-out, and yes, we don't have that voice. We continue to be concerned about that, but would like to acknowledge our local universities, Georgia Southern, as well as Savannah State, and as well as Savannah Tech, and how especially Georgia Southern and Savannah State, we are in a collaborative with them, and they have shared the great benefits that they see from this. They're kind of just sitting back and waiting, but they absolutely love the new Georgia Match.
Yeah, it's whoever's brainchild it was is wonderful. It just is unfortunate that we have our 2 flagships in another school that get to say we're not going to send those letters. And I'm sure there were some parents that got those letters. I got it. I'm sure there were some parents that got those letters this past semester, and they opened it. And first of all, they were probably just as proud as we were of Nakori when she walked by. But they also had to have a conversation that might not have ever happened before this was something that was instituted. So it's wonderful because it's going to change definitely somebody's life, if not multitudes across our state each year, because a student will be able to see, like, I already meet the requirements. All I have to do is fill out my paperwork in November when it's free to go to this institution. So that's great. I hope there's enough pushback to tell Georgia and Georgia Tech, be inclusive of every Georgian. So, and I can't remember the third, or I'd call them out.
Hang on. Okay, Hoskins Brown, then Ms. Hall.
Thank you. I appreciate the report, but I wanted to ask Mr. Brinkman, did you say that you didn't like accelerated enrollment as a measure because it didn't quantify completion?
Yeah, it's just a percentage. So
Yeah, but isn't that good? That it gives us credit for investment in accelerated programming that doesn't hinge that credit on the completion, on the test score.
Correct. I think our district does a good job of telling students that are going to be probably successful in it to take it, where if we wanted to make that 100%, we could just we could fill every single one of those classes with students just to have seats, and then we would be able to count that this percentage of our population is doing AP. Does that make sense? Like, because it's just seats in the classroom is what is counted.
Yeah.
We could just take any student.
No, it's percentage earning credit, not just opportunities offered.
There we go.
It's not just enrolling them, but they have to actually.
My bad.
Yes.
They have to
It's not just enrolling them and then they fail the course and you
Then
get
what is
credit.
credit?
No.
Then what is credit? Because credit on AP is a weird thing too, because a 3 doesn't get you credit one place, and a
But you still get grades.
You still go to grade.
you just pass in the
Okay,
class credit or
so
AP
let's go
exam
back.
credit.
No. That's why I asked you,
So-
because my understanding of this is the earning the credit is you pass the class, and
Yes.
then college and career readiness, that
Is
later
for the
measure
scores.
is you got the credential. So we get double points if a kid finishes the class and passes the test.
Thank you.
Yes.
See, that's what happens when it's hot up here.
Yes. So accelerated enrollment means Bernadette took AP Lang and she passed the course. You get credit for her. College and career readiness, she took the AP Lang exam and made a 5, and you get credit for that as well.
It has to be a 5?
Well, I'm using a 5 as an example. It could be a 3, 4, but I would have made a 5.
Bernadette only got 5.
Okay.
Thank
Ms.
you,
Hall.
Dion, for bringing me back to the water.
Ms. Hall.
I was just going to say to Mr. Brinkman, we can certainly push back. We can ask Senator Mallow, get our local legislation to look at that, to see why, if they can possibly make that happen. Because you're right, if that affects 5 kids, that would be something. So it's worth trying.
Okay, Mr. Katchmar.
So on that note, higher ed is big business, and Georgia does not mandate that a percentage of admitted students be in-state students. And some schools that have national reputations, if you look at their enrollment, foreign and out-of-state students have exponentially increased. So that's a big issue as well. I don't know if that's one of the drivers for the Georgia Match opt-out option, but I suspect it may have something to do with it. One comment and a question. I was reading, it was either in the Wall Street Journal or New York Times this week about school attendance being a problem nationwide. And I saw our data here. We went from 91% before COVID to 56% post-COVID, and we're post-COVID. Yeah. We're not even post-COVID, we're post-COVID. Mm-hmm. And if you're not in school, your readiness score isn't going to go up. Your at or above grade level reading is probably not going to grow up. You're not getting the accelerated enrollment credit. You're not completing a pathway. Now, some of these kids are thriving in remote school and online, but that's a fundamental issue that we really need to address. And I'm not saying the district is doing something wrong, because I know what we've done on attendance since I've been on this board, and we've put in a yeoman's effort and a yeoman's effort on that. But that's a problem, 56%. And then if you also look at the accelerated enrollment at 74% versus college and career readiness, 51%, not every child who's in an AP class takes the AP test. Mm-hmm. And I still haven't figured out if that's a child decision, a family decision, a teacher decision, a school decision. And I don't think we block anybody from taking it, but I think we also pay for a certain number of tests. And there may be guidance, say, hey, I don't think you're ready for this. Maybe you don't take the test. So but 51% at college and career ready versus 74% accelerated enrollment. My takeaway from all this, though, is we got to fix attendance first. That's our second North Star, if we're going to have one. And then my question is this: for years, I and several people on the board have advocated to mandate a financial literacy class before you get out of high school. I know we do junior achievement in middle school for most of our kids. That has positive results. I know the state passed a mandatory financial literacy requirement 2 years ago. I think we're rolling it out this year, or maybe we did last year. My question is that added? Are we going to add that to our 24 credit requirement, or is it just a mandatory class as part of your social studies or history credits? How are we handling that?
So we have not looked at making it a separate requirement to increase our requirements to 25 units. We have not discussed making it a separate graduation requirement. Of course, it's mandatory that it has to be taken, so that's something we'll be revisiting. We're actually revisiting, if you remember, we talked about this in the fall, the overall requirements, because we have to come back as well and talk about the EOC, because while we are still accounting for that test being 20% of a student's final grade, and in the fall of this year, the state decided that it can actually be downgraded to 10%. It is up to the local LEA to decide between the 10 and the 20 what percentage we would like for that exam to count in those 4 EOC courses. And so we did not want to change midstream on our families, because that information came out after school was open and later, but we are looking at that with a group of counselors and principals to determine what that recommendation will be that we will be bringing back to the board. And then I'm going to let Ms. Morrell speak a little bit to AP and the changes that we've seen since we've been back as it relates to those exams.
And before we do that, let me ask something about the end of course calculation, since you were talking about it. I saw it said passing the end of course test is not required for graduation.
Correct.
But we count it right now as 20%. So if you get a D on the end of course test, but it brings you to an F on your average, are you passing that course in Chatham County?
You are not.
Okay. So you still have to pass the entire course to get the credit.
Right. And so depending on your grade, when you go into the end of course test, and then depending on that score, you can fail the test, as we've shared, and be making an 85 on the course. You fail the test with a 68, you still will pass the course.
Okay.
I see kids doing that math too.
Yes. Howard Hall?
Yes, thank you for your report. I know that there are 5 indicators that we use, and you did a great job on the 4 indicators to provide opportunity for success. Now, Ms. Ball-Aubrey, you have a wealth of experience and years in high school. And as Mr. Cashmore mentioned about, he referenced that attendance. What do you see is the major problem, and what it's not a whole lot you can do as far as providing opportunity for that particular indicator as opposed to the other 4. But I know that that is a concern. It is not only a concern at the high school level, it's a concern at the middle school level as well. And it could be a concern at the elementary level. So can you just talk about the trends that you've noticed throughout the years that's going on with the attendance?
So I will tell you, as you said, as an old high school person, I think that, and we'll go back to that ugly word, the COVID word, but pre-COVID, we'd done a mammoth job, as Mr. Ketchmar said, as it relates to attendance and the importance of attending school. And then we went into COVID, and it was the virtual world and the online options. And working with students and families and the social emotional piece, all of that played into it. So upon returning to school, it has been a challenge for some to understand that the modality is face-to-face instruction. And so you need to show up, and I'm just speaking real now as that high school person, and it does trickle down, and be in school and face-to-face. And I see a head shake because it trickles down to middle school. So working with that mindset has been our challenge since then. And so we beseech our families to actually partner with us and to get on board. And many parents are looking to us sometimes, the school principals, to help with that. As stated, every school pretty much has that as a focus area in their school improvement plan. But at the end of the day, I'll tell you as a high school person, as a principal of middle or high, it is a collective responsibility, but we have to start at home getting them to school, because you're right, we can't impact any of those things unless they're with us and receiving instruction. We do a great job on support and all of those pieces and wrapping our arms around them to help them be successful. But we need you to show up and be present in that moment with us. So we have to work on, again, here's that how they're all interwoven and connected, that whole content mastery piece where we talked about student engagement, right? And making sure that we're doing our due diligence in that area so that I am showing up, but Bernadette wants to show up as well. There's a hook, there's a reason that I want to be present in your school every day. And so that is our responsibility to deliver on that end, making it where our kids want to be engaged, but also our families understanding, yes, we need you engaged, and at the end of the day, there's not much you can do. Well, I won't say that, because then Jay-Z will make me look bad, so I won't say there's not much you can do without a diploma, but we know in order for our kids to be successful, because everybody's not going to leave high school and be Jay-Z and make $1 billion. For our kids to be successful, we need you to show up, attend school, get that high school diploma. We're not saying you got to go to college, but we are saying we have a plethora of options we can prepare you for, whether it's enlisted, enrolled, or entrepreneurship. We have all of those options that we've talked about.
I'll just add, the engagement piece is so important. When I walk classrooms, a lot of times, even when kids are showing up, you see heads on desks, earphones on. Kids come out of compliance, not necessarily because they see relevance and meaningfulness in school. And I think as we consider being future-oriented as a district, we have to understand that the old model, the way in which we all came to high school, does not necessarily align with our current and future generations of children. We are dealing with new types of kids that have different things that we never had as kids exposed to us, yet the high school model has not changed very much. Still walk in every school, you see a classroom with a teacher with 25 to 30 kids in front of the class. So I do believe it is a partnership, but I think we also have to think about what does high school look like and its next generation of kids, and how we create schools where kids see relevancy and meaningfulness. You want to come to school when you're an athlete because you know you got a game on Friday. You want to come to school when you're in the band because you know the band's going to be in the stands playing the night of the basketball or the football game, or you're a cheerleader, or you're in the beta club. So or in art. We talked about art this morning. So really creating those environments where kids want to be in school, because a kid can come to school, but they have mentally dropped out. They're coming out of compliance. They're not really coming to enjoy the benefits of an education so that they can move on and be successful in life. So that's one of the things I hope to be able to bring to the district, is how do we revisit models of instruction. We also have to think about that in terms of teachers. Teachers are not going into the profession now the way they went into the profession, because the next generation of teachers are very different. They don't think like I thought. You get into it, you do it for 30 years. Teachers now get into it, and they are gone. And the model in which we have now does not appeal to this generation of educators. So I think there's a lot of work we can do around attendance, and I'm excited to explore that further.
Okay, so our Teacher of the Year actually has a
I
perspective.
hope it's allowed that I can make a comment. Every day I get an email from a student, I don't have a ride to school. I want to be there. That is an issue with our choice schools that is truly, I'm witness it every day, affecting attendance. I don't know, that's a difference if you look at all of those choice schools. I don't know a solution, but just to give y'all another heads up. I mean, and you could go and pull STEM's data, but there's 3 students every day. They've missed at least well over 23, 24 days because nobody can drive them to school.
Ms. Hall?
Just very quickly, also, I'm hoping that we have a good relationship, Mr. Brinkman, with our business community so that employment opportunities aren't pulling our kids away from school. I know that many times I see people working in these frontline positions, and I tell you, they look like they're about 15, 16 years old, and it's during the school day. So I'm hoping that we have some sort of mechanism to make sure that our employers are working with us and not hiring our teenagers outside of the hours they should.
And so for those that are enrolled and with us, I will tell you that our work-based learning teachers do a great job of monitoring that and making sure that if you are enrolled in school and you are working, that schedule fits in with the courses you need to actually graduate. So our CTAE work-based learning teachers do a really good job in that piece.
Okay, so I have one question. Under the under college and career readiness, percentage of 12th graders entering TCSG, I guess that's technical college, or USG, without remediation. Without remediation, our total is 27%. What does that mean?
So I'm going to let...
You have to go in, when you go into the CCRP, hit the button and it will give you all the scores.
So I'm going to let Dr. May break down the calculation so that it comes out accurate from a data and accountability person.
Let me pull up that section so I can provide you that information.
So if you
The
look,
college and career readiness on the team.
first indicator, entering without remediation.
So if you hit the blue button, it will give you the total breakdown.
So while she is doing that, I'd like to have the opportunity, because I think we were having that conversation, we wanted to finish answering Mr. Ketchmar's questions. We ended up going down a different path. He asked about the AP exams and the actual testing of AP.
Yes, so one thing that has changed with advanced placement, one of the things I do want to highlight where we're talking about advanced placement, the Savannah-Chatham County Public School System this summer participated in APAC, which is the first time back for the AP College Board National Conference. We actually had probably more participants with teachers, AP coordinators, principals, and other support staff members that not only presented on the national stage and shared our Savannah-Chatham County Public School System story, but also, of course, collaborated and learned a lot of best practices. One of the things that College Board has done most recently is made a big shift. So around a lot of the different conversations that we're having today, they too realize, just like the International Baccalaureate world, they realize our students want different options. They want flexibility and the like. So as it relates to AP, what they've done now, even some of our schools, of course, will engage in digital exams like they did last year. Some of them are growing in terms of the administrations as well. As it relates to enrollment in the AP classes, in order for students now, of course, if they're sitting in an AP class, they're enrolled, they have to register for the exam in order for them to have access to the resources and materials. That includes the classroom teacher. So AP Classroom is something that College Board actually rolled out maybe about at least approximately 3 to 5 years ago. So what College Board did was streamline the curriculum, if you will, from the breadth to go more in depth. And also to make sure that all teachers, there was a level playing field, if you will, across all of the nation. And so with that being said, that has, of course, afforded the opportunity for, if you are enrolled in the class, in order to show up and be able to take assessments, you, of course, need to sit for the examination. So that has actually helped us by having AP Classroom.
Okay.
So I wanted to clear that up, Dr. May.
Yes. So per that statement, what that means is you have to look at the TCSG requirements, and you have to match those to, so first and foremost, this is a lagging indicator. So we're talking about the 12th graders that would have completed the previous year. And for those who went into those technical colleges, whether they met their criteria for entrance into the technical college without remediation at the technical college.
Okay,
So
what
that's
is
what it
what is
means.
USG?
So,
That's the university system,
Yes,
same indicator, but
University
it's the
System of
university
Georgia.
system.
So
of Georgia.
according to the US, so
it's either the technical system, so those are two, so you have to look at their criteria, and those are going to be different. There's a different set of criteria for the technical colleges versus the University System of Georgia. So there will be additional requirements with the University System of Georgia versus the technical college, and that's just for our students to meet their entrance criteria. So when they say without meeting remediation, it would mean remediation at their site, which means.
And so I think,
so I'm trying to understand. So
Yes, sir.
are they saying that our kids are, the only way that our kids will make it at those schools is they would need remediation for those requirements?
Correct, and that would be, yes, but of course you also have to take into account, that only takes into account those students within our district that have opted to go either to technical college or college within the state of Georgia. So that percentage is going to only reflect those students who are pursuing a 2-year or 4-year degree within the state of Georgia, and then you have to look at whether that student, once they have graduated from the district and moved into either site, meets their full entrance criteria without additional remediation. So what that means is a number of colleges will require, so if you do not take the SAT or the ACT, for example, because you can opt out, that is optional at a lot of colleges, they may have you, as part of their admission criteria, sit and take something that's known as an AccuPlacer. If you do not meet certain levels of performance on that AccuPlacer, you will be earmarked for either taking remedial math or remedial English. So those are the two courses. So without really needing remediation in either English or math.
So 73% of our kids would need remediation.
No, sir, because 100% do not go to.
No, I'm talking about those kids that apply, hang on, those kids that apply and go to the University System of
Yes.
Georgia. Those systems, forget everybody else. Those kids that go, are you saying that 73% of those kids are in need of remediation?
So, I'm sorry, can I jump in? I think what needs to happen is that when we do this presentation in February, we need to actually research that indicator to dig deeper and give you that data based on the way that the state reports it.
Okay, so I have
Because I
one-
think that would
yeah,
help.
That's fine, no, that's fine. I have one more.
And sir, can I add one thing
Yes.
before you move on? And the reason why I was shaking my head no, and I would not want to say that 73% of our students require remediation at all, is because that is one of the components of the college and career readiness. Note the "or" at the very end, so it's for those who choose.
I understand.
Yes.
I understand. No, I understand that. Okay, here's one that bothers me. Military readiness score based on the ASVAB. Dr. May, I hope you're looking at this, right?
Yes, sir.
What is that percentage?
It's the new one for this year.
Let's see, the ASVAB score,
That was the new one that was added
Yeah.
when we did the actual, when the state did the
so
amendments.
in terms of the qualifying score to meet military readiness, it is an ASVAB score of 31.
No, but no, what is the
But the-
score on the readiness? The percentage?
How many students do we have that meet that? Or what's the percentage of students in our
Who completed the ASVAB? I will be able to provide you
Okay,
that
okay.
percentage at a later time.
No, but no,
as a
according to the
follow-up.
CCRPI, only 1.5% of our kids are passing that.
Right.
But it could be, we also have to
But
take into account, we have to go back and provide you the
I understand.
actual
It's
number because
how
it may
many-
have been 5.
I understand.
We,
Okay, that's fine.
I do want to note that very few of our students, in fact, elect to take the ASVAB as the option there. For most of them, it would be ACT, SAT, some other, but it would not be ASVAB. We have very few who, in fact, complete that.
Okay, all right. All right, so I guess in general, what I'm saying is this. I'm all about our graduation rate. I salute us for having an 89.1% graduation rate. What I am more concerned about is our college and career readiness score. Because that's what it is. It's not a piece of paper, it's what that piece of paper represents. And so I would, we've got work to do. I think, we're up to 65.4%. That's fantastic. But I just, we know we can do better, and we're working on it. All right.
Mr. Chair?
Yeah.
I would ask that we look at this in academic excellence. That's kind of where we're able to dig down into these things. I personally have seen students who have a high school transcript of a B+, who hit the AccuPlacer, and it knocks them down twice. So that measurement of you're not college ready because you didn't pass the AccuPlacer is not accurate for all students. It's how did you do on that test that day versus what did you truly absorb, what's your cumulative knowledge. So it's very difficult to distill our progress into a yes or no response to were they ready or not on the basis of that USG.
I understand.
So, and I think you do, but I admire what you're trying to get to. You're trying to get to how are we doing and how do we fix it? Sitting on the college side, I'm like, that's broken, and I'm watching smart kids come in who are being defined as not college ready when they absolutely are, and I'm seeing them do things that AccuPlacer and other tests say they can't do. But this is really something terrific for us to chew on in academic excellence if we can find a way to get onto that agenda.
Okay. Mr. Kachmar?
A related question is, we teach according to the state-adopted content standards, and those are what we test on. I'd like to know, are they aligned with the assessments the university system and the technical college are providing? And if they're not, that's something to know. But then if they're not, maybe we up our local standards so that they're aligned with those, at least for those kids who are going to college. But it's why we used to give the Iowa test 15 years ago, and then we got away from it because kids were killing it on there, showing great, progress, and then not doing well on the Georgia standards because they test something different. At the end of the day, a test one day is a test one day. So I'd also like to know alignment because that'll tell us something about what we're producing as well.
Thank you. And so to that point, our final wrap-up will be to remind that we'll have our CCRPI presentation where you'll see much of this again in February with Dr. May and her team. And now hopefully we'll be able to dig deeper into the high school portion of this through our College and Career Readiness Index. But understanding that that is why we brought you this information, because while graduation rate is a different component, the three components still work together as we produce our graduates, and that is the graduation rate and those requirements, readiness, and content mastery. They're all interwoven, and they're all important as we turn out our students for post-secondary options. So thank you.
Dr. Bringman.
On that, I would love to see the attendance broken out by school, but also by cohort. And then if we could get like the 7th and 8th grade cohorts that are going to be becoming high school to see if it is one of those COVID things that Dr. Watts and I's children were freshman COVID, as they went through, what was their attendance rate, the students that were in middle school during COVID, and is there some statistical anomaly that's even worse coming?
Yes.
Or have we already seen the worst? Or is it geographical? Would be interesting to know because, they got to go to school.
Thank you, guys. Thank you. All right. Financials.
Can I actually have questions?
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm trying to remember my short class in making this large. Can I have some help, Russ? Control L. Good, I did it. The financials that we will be sharing with you today are supposed to be November numbers. Excuse me just a minute, let me see. Yeah.
We've got them here.
Got your notes?
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
Do you know where to go?
Yeah, okay. The numbers that you should have copies of are for our November year-to-date numbers. In Fund 100, our total revenues for the year-to-date, we're at 50% of our budgeted revenues. Our local property sales taxes, our local property taxes, we are currently at 55, almost 56% of budget. Compared to last year, we were at 56%. Our total expenditures so far for year to date, we're at 28.2% of budget for our teachers. And that's a normal range for what we would expect this time of the year. Our actual paraprofessionals and teacher assistants, we're at 32% of budget, which we're expecting about 30%. Our total general fund expenditures, year-to-date, we're at 32% compared to 31% last year. Overall, for this time of the year, we have nothing negative to report as far as our financials go. We're on target with all of our numbers. We finished up our audit last month, so we will be able to report those to you this time next month. So at this point, with all of our other funds, they are on target at this time also. I will take any questions that you may have at this time.
Any questions? Okay.
Thank you.
There he is.
Okay. We're going to the next agenda item. And I do apologize because I could have swore I downloaded the correct month. But so that's on me. We have agenda item, general fund interest. The Division of Finance does now request approval to increase the general fund, Fund 100 interest income budget from $650,000 to $3 million. In October 2022, the interest rate for our income was 2.86951%. In October 2023, the interest rate on our income went up to 5.301%. The interest rates have increased in the past year. Therefore, we are increasing the interest income line by $2,350,000. Thus, be it resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent that the board approve the budget amendment of $2,350,000 for the interest income account line mentioned above.
Moved by Mr. Kachmar, seconded by Dr. Ostensbrough. Discussion? All right. All in favor? That's unanimous. Thank you.
The next item is for bid 23-0053, gasoline and diesel fuel for Chatham County and other various agencies. This is a piggyback agreement we have with the County of Chatham to purchase fuel. Staff recommends approval to use Chatham County's bid 23-0053, gasoline and diesel fuel for Chatham County and other various agencies to purchase gasoline and diesel fuel for district vehicles at an estimated cost, annual cost of $3.1 million. Thus be it resolved, upon the recommendation of the superintendent, that the board approve the district's use of Chatham County's bid 23-0053-6B, gasoline and diesel fuel for Chatham County and other various agencies for an initial performance period of 1 year with 4 additional 1-year renewal options at an estimated annual cost of $3,100,000.
Motion by Michael Johnson, second by Connie Hall. Any discussion? All in favor?
Oh, wait, whoa, I want to ask. Is that
Yes, sir.
okay?
Dr. Brinkman?
No. Is the 3.1 million our portion?
That's our portion,
That's our
yes.
portion. So we
Yes, for
are
fuel.
included in the various agencies.
That's our portion.
Okay.
3.1 million is our portion.
Okay. Is there a way to figure, you don't have to tell me now, but I would love to know, by buying it this way, what we actually get locked in at, or is it a floating amount per gas?
We can get that to you.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm glad we're actually playing nice with other municipalities, though. That is nice.
Any other discussion? All in favor? All right. Passes unanimously.
Your first official duty. All right, moving on. Long-range facilities plan? No, not yet.
That's it.
Yeah. Yes, the next thing is our long-range facilities plan. Yes. Play video first. Oh, okay.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Read this. Proposal for Long-Range Facilities Plan, Phase 1, Action, School Year 24-25. In accordance with Board Policy FD, Facilities Long-Range Planning, Parsons Environmental and Infrastructure Group was contracted to provide an assessment of district facilities for the development of a long-range facility plan, LRFP. The assessment has findings for each facility's physical condition, along with the deferred maintenance costs and facility condition index scores. Information through this assessment reports each school's educational suitability, including demographics, enrollment, capacity, utilization, and technology readiness. Based on this assessment and other considerations, including financial impacts, legal mandates, transportation route efficiencies, population shift, and programmatic impacts, the district has developed a plan that seeks to optimize the usage of facilities, improve the configuration of attendance boundaries, and strengthen the effectiveness of programs for implementation beginning school year 2024-2025. District staff have reviewed facility data, assessed the tender boundaries, configurations, held parents' meetings, and presented information for community stakeholders. Based on continued analysis and consideration of feedback received, the district now seeks approval for the proposed recommendations to improve capacity levels at identified schools and strengthen the use of district resources. The Phase 1 proposal provides recommendations for the renovation, repurposing, reconfiguration, or closure of certain facilities. Further recommendations are offered for modifications of attendance boundary lines at identified schools. This approach aligns with the district goals to address capacity concerns, utilization rates, and improve pupil transportation services. Thus, be it resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent that the board approve the proposed recommendations for school reconfigurations and attendance boundary modifications as identified in the long-range facility plan. Phase 1 for implementation beginning school year 2024-2025. Phase 2 addressing future projects will be submitted for future considerations.
Michael Johnson moves. It's been seconded by Ms. Hall. We do have someone from the public that wanted to speak on this. I don't know if they're still here or not. Mrs. Lena Ali. And she is not here. Okay, any other discussion? Mr. Katchmar.
So the long-range facility plan that's on board docs is 67 pages. We've looked at kind of a pullout from that. That's what we saw this morning. I saw some of the proposed maps in what's on board docs. So number one, I'm going to support this, and I'll say why in a minute, but I'm supporting it with the understanding that what was rolled out this morning at informal is included in the 67-page document. And if there's a conflict, what we saw this morning in informal is the plan.
It is.
Okay, second, we looked at this plan last month. There was community feedback, there was community participation, there was a board delay. District staff went back, kind of scrubbed the plan some more, and I think we have a better outcome now. And I know we said this before, but I wanted to say it during the regular board meeting. Thank you to district staff.
Yes.
For the extra time and effort put in to reimagining this and taking all of the issues into consideration, including feedback from families. I think this plan is the best result out of a lot of choices that we didn't want to have to make, but we're being forced to make because of growth on the west side and because of other challenges as well. What I particularly like about the revised plan is that we've built in flexibility for future growth and for unknowns. And what I want to say is this plan has specific components, including grandfathering options for students over the next 3 years in certain schools. But we may have to revisit this plan next year or 2 years from now if some of the assumptions we were making over the last few months and up to today turn out not to be accurate, or if, like has happened, there's a new Hyundai plant coming that we didn't know about 4 years ago when we were planning our original East Bluff and doing our original planning. So I think this is a great result. I hope we can keep it as is over the next 3 years and beyond. But given what's happening in Western Chatham County, there may be tweaks down the road, and we just have to be patient and maintain the willingness to be flexible to best serve our kids, our families, and our staff.
If I might, you're correct, Mr. Katchmar. And just like the local facilities plan, which is a 5-year plan that we have to file with the state, we review that annually, just based on changes or what needs to be taken into consideration. So certainly, once this is adopted, it doesn't sit on the shelf and we just implement it. We'll continue to do our due diligence and analysis and making sure that we're meeting the needs of the districts. And if there is certainly a need to bring changes forward, we'll bring those recommendations back to you with the supporting documentation.
Thank you. Apparently, Ms. Ali did come back in. Ms. Ali? Yes, please.
Sorry, I thought it was going to be later.
No worries. You have 3 minutes.
All right. Hey, good afternoon. Yeah, I'm Lena Ali. I'm here to speak on behalf of immigrant families and the SCCPSS. I would like to bring attention to the long-term facilities plan and the continued updates that have been made to it. It's great to see that y'all have been listening to the constituents and making some updates to the plan. Today, during your informal meeting, you brought up the needs, and we completely agree. Based on the conversations we've had with Hispanic parents we work with, a lot has been unclear the past few weeks about the execution of the plan. Before fully deciding on the plan or making a vote, we ask that you have a more transparent process and have more information readily available with enough time for public access. For example, a summary of the long-range facilities plan from November 1st is currently easy to find on the SCCPSS homepage, but the 67-page Phase 1 document with updated information is not easy to find, and it's not offered in Spanish yet. It was shared as an attachment to the agenda today. Also, since a lot remains unclear, we still have the following questions. Please consider this before implementing the major changes this potential plan will have on students. 1, how is the district planning to share the updated adjustments with families who don't speak English, and how can they approve their feedback? And how can they provide their feedback? 2, what will happen to the DLI, dual language program at Gould? 3, you have mentioned there will be a grandfathering process. Will this be an option for elementary students? If not, why not? 4, will enough staff be hired before moving of students to ensure students get the classes they need? We don't want a repeat of what happened to some ESL students from Groves High School. 5, if the students remain at Gould, how long will it take for the required repairs to be made or for a new building to be built? 6, if the GMG multi-campus is now being considered to be 6 through 12, what happens with the funding that was set for Gould pre-K through 5? Although these changes are hopefully going to help address the transportation and overcrowding issues our district is facing, I ask that the board members prioritize transparency and keep in mind the children being impacted. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Okay. Mr. Johnson.
I know staff is, I'm pretty sure that the rest of the my board members know that I was when this plan first came out, I was probably the loudest antagonistic person when it came to this plan. However, like Mr. Kastner said, we kind of pumped the brakes a little bit. Staff went out. We had a town hall meeting out in the 7th District, and staff really listened to the constituents out there. Before that, staff listened to the constituents from and the families from Gould Elementary as well. There have been a whole lot of different versions of this plan. And I have to agree with Mr. Cashmore that this is the best plan that we can do with what we have today. Is it perfect? No. Is any plan going to be perfect? No. Are you going to make everybody happy? No. However, this brings in this plan. It understands the history of the areas mainly affected in West Chatham. It understands grandfathering and puts that human element into the plan. And it shows that the district is willing to listen to the people it affects on a day-to-day basis. So with that being said, even though if this was going to be voted on last month, I would have voted no. But due to the changes and due to the hard work of staff, I will be voting yes, and I hope the rest of my board members do as well.
Thank you very much. Okay, Dr. Howard Hall, then Ms. Hall.
I did second this, right?
Yeah, you did.
Was I the one who
But Howard
seconded?
Hall, had something to say first.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, mine will be very quick. I think this shows. Oh, are you? Who are you
Go
calling
ahead,
on?
Ms. Hall. Go ahead.
Okay.
The tradition used to be that the first person to speak on the action is the person who made the motion, and the second person to speak on the action is the second. That kind of died, and so she wasn't being rude. She was just falling back in the tradition.
It's all good. It's all good.
Now, who would you
Go
like
ahead.
to speak?
Go ahead.
Connie Hall?
No, Ms. Connie Hall.
Okay. I just want to say, it's in tune with what Michael was saying and Sean, that I think what this shows is why I've always said that we're a board of distinction. We did not hang our egos on the fact that we made a decision that we could not ever change. We saw different data, more exclusive, inclusive data and all, and that led us to decide, yes, we can make some changes here that are going to be good for our citizens. So I commend us on that, and I want the public to see that we are a board who can make a decision, see where it needs to be upgraded, corrected, whatever, and we're eager to come back and make it right. So I want that to be a part of the record.
Absolutely. Thank you, Ms. Hall. Dr. Howard Hall.
Yes. We often hear the term data-driven decisions. This sounds good, but we have really displayed what it really looks like, because there's two types of data. You have your quantitative and qualitative. This is a very good example of how we utilize our qualitative data by listening to our constituents, to our students, teachers, parents, not only listening to them, but taking surveys, having small group meetings, writing notes, listening to them, one-on-one conversations, and that's made a very huge impact. And I'd like to thank the team for your hard work with this. We know that there is significant growth in West Chatham County. That has always been a concern for me from the day I was elected to serve on the school board. We know that in West Chatham County, it continues to grow. Growth there is not going, growth there is growing. So I would like to continue us with this, for us to continue as we work through the phases, that we really do consider determining where a new high school will be built in West Chatham County, simply because we know what's going on with the growth. We have to, first of all, determine whether or not it would be Northport Wentworth or the Pooler area. We have to determine the design and, most importantly, how we're going to pay for it. But overall, I am very thankful. I appreciate the work that's been done, and this is what diversity looks like when you're communicating effectively. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ms. Grabowski, then Dr. Brinkman.
Thank you. So thank you also to the team, to the staff for all of your hard work, and for, as many of my colleagues have said, for listening. For the parents who are going to be, I'm very grateful that we now have the grandfathering option that has been made available to our middle and high school students. For the parents that are going to be evaluating those options, I hope that you will truly consider all the options before you. I think the impulse for a lot will be keep your child where they are, and I'm very grateful that we have that opportunity. But I also think there's a lot of misperceptions about many of our schools. We heard some of those misperceptions at our last meeting, and I think that our schools, all of our schools, offer diverse opportunities. And it may well be that the new school to which you are being zoned may be a better fit for your child. I'm grateful that we have that opportunity to provide that flexibility to our families. I'm just saying, I think there's opportunities to evaluate those decisions with open minds, and I hope that our parents will do just that. And thank you again to the team for your hard work and your dedication to this process.
Dr. Brinkman.
Yeah, I think we all want to say thank you. Some of the people that haven't been thanked, I would say all of the parents that came to small town meetings, that came to board meetings, that wrote emails, and phone calls. I'd like to thank the board members that took the brunt of this, Dr. Howard Hall for what she did for her constituents, Mr. Michael Johnson for what he did. Ms. Hall and Dr. Hoskins Brown have also had us pump the brakes on changes that we're following, but we were going to have, it's phase one. There's going to be other phases, so we've got time. But I loved that we listened, we met. When we didn't meet here, we're also meeting in smaller groups with the district staff. So I don't even want, we'd have to have a meeting to figure out how many meetings were made to come up with the plan. And for this really to be our superintendent's first big change, and stealing some of Dr. Howard Hall's discussion on data-driven, she was looking at it at the beginning, I'm sure from more of a quantitative, because we had a lot of problems, issues that could be solved just with numbers. And then that quantitative morphed into a lot more qualitative. I'm sure she's learned a bunch about the district, which is going to help her. So a great process that is going to transform the district, but also I think has transformed our board, helped our community hopefully to understand that as board members have said, we listen, we change, we're willing to change, we're willing to pump the brakes. And I know that everybody on the staff that worked on this is never going to be congratulated enough for the hard work to have to go back and erase everything off of the PowerPoint and erase everything off of a dry erase marker and everything off of a map and recount all those students and where they would go and the countless hours that were put into it. But I'm glad that we have the staff that will do that because they're thinking about what's best, not just on a number bean counter side, but what's best for our community moving forward. So thank you to everybody, really. Thank you. This is a win. Thank you.
All right.
I may as well, everybody else.
Go ahead, Dr. Hoskins Brown.
I won't say the same thing, though. I'll simply say that no one worked a 40 or even a 60-hour week while working out this issue, so thank you to the staff for the effort that they put in. I think one of the main lessons that we learned from this is there is strength in humility, and I think the district has shown that, that we don't have a problem being humble and saying, okay, you know what, we need to think a little bit more. And the other thing is that we should not assume, don't ever assume what people know. We should not assume what we think the community knows. And the community should not assume that we're making decisions knowing everything that they would have us know. Because obviously what's happened in this case is we got some information. Even after the initial information, we got some more that made us reflect. So communication is always valuable, and it's okay to say to someone, are you thinking this? Are you doing this? Are you taking this action with the awareness of this fact that is important to me as a parent, or this fact that is important to me as a taxpayer? And if you are, can we talk about how I'm feeling and experiencing this that may be important? I think we demonstrated and did that, but I just kind of wanted to say that more explicitly. We can't assume what we think people know and the criteria upon which decisions are being made. That's why we have this forum. That's why there's a microphone there. That's why we hear from you in all different types of formats. So thank you, everybody, for fully participating in all of the processes available that got us here. And thank you for the team.
Thank you very much. Any more discussion? There being none, I will call the vote. All in favor of accepting the Phase 1 facility plan, please raise your hand. It is unanimous. Thank you very much. Okay, and you thought we were done. We're not. Okay, so now Larry Jackson has some good news.
We do have some good news. On December the 18th, 2023, Governor Brian Kemp announced a one-time $1,000 state retention payment supplement for K-12 educators, school support staff, and state employees. The district will gross up for tax implication to $1,350 for full-time employees and $675 for part-time employees. To pay for the additional monies to gross up the retention supplement and to provide the supplement to all employees, an additional use of $3,828,177 will be needed from fund balance. The general fund portion includes a grant of $4,049,718 from the state and the use of fund balance of $3,828,177 of fund balance to pay the general fund portion. Right from the start is providing a $1,000 retention supplements for Georgia pre-K lead and assistant teachers. Teacher eligibility for the supplement payment was based upon the pre-K roster data as of December the 20th, 2023. The total amount of the pre-K grant is expected to be $146,404. That amount is shown in the chart below. Included in positions that the districts plan to support, we calculated 5,632 positions. 3,631.4 positions are being paid by the governor's state grant, the 136 positions by the pre-K Bright from the start, but the district is picking up the tab for everyone else that's either general fund, not QBE earned, or paid for out of another grant, for example, Title I, Title II, etc. There are 1,864.6 positions that the district is paying for locally. I do want to point out some criteria that we're using for the payments. We're including all active employees, whether they're full-time or part-time, as of December the 18th, 2023. And they will expect to see this supplement on their paychecks that are dated for this Friday, the 12th. All resignations and retirements that were effective prior to December the 18th were not eligible. However, all new hires and all temporary employee contracts that started after December 18th through today's date will be evaluated after 90 work days, and they will be eligible for the supplement to be paid by April 30th of 2024. Anyone hired after today will not be eligible for the supplement. Now, with all that being said, thus be it resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent that the board approves the amendment of the teacher and support staff retention supplement budgeted expenditures and revenues by $7,877,895 as shown in the table above for Fund 100 to pay the additional monies to gross up the retention supplement and to provide the supplement to all employees. An additional use of $3,828,177 will be needed from fund balance. Also, upon the recommendation of the superintendent, that the board approves the amendment of the teacher and support staff retention supplements in Fund 560 for pre-K, budgeted expenditures and revenues by $146,404 as shown in the above tables.
Dr. Brinkman, and seconded by Mr. Johnson. Any discussion? Dr. Brinkman.
On December 18th, y'all were just as surprised as I was when Governor Kemp announced this. But I loved knowing at the time that the district would make right. I got telephone calls that day. I knew I couldn't say anything. I said, I'm sure we'll have some meetings. In the past, we have done X, Y, and Z. I will advocate for that. Just hold your horses. Because typically, these are only for state-funded positions. So thank you, Mr. Jackson, for getting everybody to understand that if we would have just given out the money that the state gave us, that would be $1,000 to a lot of our employees, but there would have been 1,864 of them that wouldn't have received anything because they are funded purely by our local tax dollars or by grants or probably some other buckets. They wouldn't have received that funding. That means a kindergarten teacher on one side of the hall that is funded at the QBE by a state position, and the kindergarten teacher across the hall that the district has said, we want smaller classroom sizes, would have been treated differently. And that's not right. And I love knowing that when I put my head on the pillow on December 18th, that wasn't going to happen here because our district would make it right. I was even more excited when I had my small group meeting to discuss this budget that the district said we have enough money in fund balance to actually make this as close to possible a true $1,000 bonus, okay? I am a state-funded position. I teach. I got my $1,000, and it got taxed down to 600 and something. I was still happy, okay? Because it wasn't in my budget for the year, so anything is icing. Gravy. Yeah, gravy. But it was so for me to sit down and y'all right off the bat go, we're going to level this up so that for the vast majority of our people, and some of them might actually get a little bit more than 1,000 because it's really hard math to do all individually, that most people at our district, when they get this, are going to get a full $1,000 after taxes. That's awesome. It's awesome that we have a fund balance that we can do that for our employees because they work hard for us. So thank you to district staff, because again, this wasn't something that I'm sure on that day, Larry was not like, I need some more work. Let me find some more work. And then Brian Kemp was like, here's some more work. And you knew that we would ask, so you're like, I better just already start building it for everybody and figuring out where we have that funding. So thank you to all of your staff that made this happen, to HR having to probably do all the head counts to figure out when people were hired. There's just so much work that goes into doing something right for our employees, and I am happy to sit here with this in front of me today to know that checks are going to hit Friday and people are getting a Christmas bonus to start off January. So thank you so much to the staff for making it right, for making it easy for us to go, if you vote no against this, I will see you in the parking lot.
Okay, any other comments? Mr. Johnson, then Dr. Howard Hall.
Real quick, he took a lot of what I was going to say, so I'll just say ditto to Dr. Brinkman. But another thing that I do want to mention is that I've actually had a few people who went on board docs and who knew that we were going to be using some fund balance. We've been told by outside agencies that we probably need to be using some of our fund balance. So because this is a one-time expense, do I would like to spend $3.8 million? No. But if we have the money and we need to spend the money, so let's spend it on the people who make the district work, and that's our employees. One thing also that I do want to mention, which I don't know if it has been mentioned, is that according to the governor's office and everything else, is that the bonus was also not for elected officials, and it wasn't for central office people. It was for those employees who are actually on the ground who do the everyday work, who touch the students, who touch those kids to make those lives better. So this use of fund balance, I do not have one issue with it. It also shows, though, that we still have way too much money in our fund balance, and that is, I would love to figure out a way to get the fund balance to where it is, and I know that's a finance committee job, as well as possibly figuring out a way to roll back the millage rate as much as possible so we're not having to have too much in the fund balance next time.
Dr. Howard Hall.
I won't be long at all. This is just the importance of us recognizing the diverse contributions of all of our employees, because we know that there are 3 funding sources. We use the state, federal, and local. And according to the governor, it was only state. All of our employees are important to us. We value what they do. And thank you for the new term, grossing up.
Grossing up. Anyone else? All right. In fear of being beat up in the parking lot. No, just kidding. Just okay. Okay, Aaron Rodgers. Okay. All in favor, raise your hand. Unanimous. Thank you. And there's more.
One more good news item. The U.S. Department of Education has awarded SCC PSS.
This was off the agenda we thought.
No, we're still on agenda.
Oh, okay.
We're still on agenda.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. The U.S. Department of Education has awarded SCC PSS $4 million for a 5-year project prevent grant to support target schools for fiscal year 2023 through 2028. The grant funding will be used to address the impacts of community violence experienced by students at the 5 identified target schools: Hodge and Gastogen Elementary Schools, Duran and Myers Middle School, and Beach High School. This includes professional development for school staff at each site, hiring a community navigator, and hiring social workers to support designated schools. It will actually be 1 social worker per school. Additionally, students will have increased access to mentors, mental health services, small group interventions, and coordination of social services. The Division of Academic Affairs requests the board approve the budget for the grant funds for both expenditures and revenues as proposed in the chart below. Thus be it resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent that the board approve the budget amendment of $4 million for FY23 through FY28 Project Prevent Grant.
Okay. It's moved by Mr. Johnson, seconded by Ms. Grabowski. Any discussion? Good. All in favor? That is unanimous. Thank you very much. Okay. Okay. All right. So we have several people that have signed up to speak today. Once again, we do have a time limit of 3 minutes, and I have just discovered that I have a mute button. Just kidding. So first we have Mr. Mohammed Absaleh.
Good evening. First, let me introduce myself. I am Mohammed Naji Abu Saleh, originally from Syria. Now I am American citizen. Well, I am in a very critical situation after a lot of people spoke about success of education, about the success of students. I'm sorry, I'm going to speak about one experience which is very bad that happened in one of the schools to my daughter. I'm going to speak about a drug addiction and drug dealing in our schools. I don't mean all schools. It is a private experience. I don't mean all the schools of Savannah. Maybe you deny it, maybe you agree with me, maybe you don't want it to speak about it. But it is a special private experience that happened to me and to my daughter. We came to Savannah, 2017. She went to primary school. She was an ordinary girl. She was successful in her class. And after she moved into intermediate school, the problem began. She began to skip the classes, and she was caught many times in the restroom smoking. I don't know what kind of smoke, and maybe she is using drugs or something else. I don't know about these things. So she became very violent. She became always skipping classes. And when she is in high school, she shifted 3 schools from one high school to another because of her bad behavior, because of her violence, because she was always caught in the restroom using drugs. So I began to collect some information. She didn't tell me anything. She hid everything. She didn't tell me anything. So I went to some Syrian students to find out why my daughter goes to the restroom. Why is there any problem concerning what is the problem in the restrooms? So a lot of the Syrian fellows that I know, they are from different high schools. They told me that there are small gangs in these schools. They sell drugs. They use dirty methods such as bullying, such as forcing especially weak students to buy these drugs. And this, of course, causes violence at home, violence in the school. And she had a quarrel with one of her classmates, and her finger was broken. So my daughter became very violent. I know this doesn't happen in all schools of Savannah, and I'm sorry, I'm speaking about my own experience, and I hope it is not there in all schools. But to my mind, if there is such a problem, I have some suggestion to solve this problem.
Sir, you're over your time. I'm sorry.
Okay.
If you'll leave that with our officer, though.
No, either I say it, give me 1 minute to say the suggestion to
Okay.
solve this problem. Or
Go ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay. Now, teaching some parts of the Bible that improve and correct the students' behavior as a period every week, I hope it will correct the behavior of all students, and this is good. Putting cameras and smoke sensors in the restroom, will make the drug dealers are afraid. There should be a kind of cooperation between the Board of Teaching and the administration of the school and the detective department. A special phone number should be given to every student to call the defect staff or office to encourage the student to inform the detective office about the name of the small gang that distributes drugs at the schools. And these phones should be true, otherwise the caller, if it is false, he should be put in prison. The teachers should fight using, they should fight drugs by speaking about the harm and the destructive consequences of the dictated drugs, and encourage students to inform the Board of Teaching about these gangs. I hope that the board of the school will take fair measure with the cooperation of the Board of Teaching. The security guard of the schools should be chosen by the detective department carefully, and they should be brave and devoted to their job without fear. because a lot of teachers, even principals, they are afraid of the gangs outside the school. There are big gangs that they cooperate with the small drugs dealer. That's everything that I have concerning.
Thank you very much.
And thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, Mr. Rick Roney.
President Moss, board members, Dr. Watts, I'd like to talk about what I think are the top 3 priorities for 2024. Some of this you've talked about already today. Number 1, continue the implementation of the science of reading. We've started with the Lexia training, letters training for administrators and coaches. Now it moves to teachers. This is a very strong start. We have to continue with that. Next step, I think, is the curriculum selection. When Kareem Weaver was here last fall, he talked about curriculum selection, and he advised 3 main criteria. Number 1, a demonstrated proof that the curriculum teaches children like our children. Number 2, it's easy for teachers to use. And 3, that it's complete. It doesn't need add-ons. This is a huge change we have underway, cultural, methodological, and it's going to take strong management and perseverance and follow-through for a number of years. So that's priority number 1. Number 2 is connected. Implement a remediation plan for the 10,000 students who are in our schools today who passed through 3rd grade not reading at grade level. There's 10,000 of them, 10,000 kids. And if they don't get help, their lives are not going to be good. It's going to be a mess. So I haven't heard or seen any plans regarding that. The third thing, and this is something you talked about already today, is address the dismally low attendance level. In the report the district put out last September, it says, I quote, "Missing more than 5 days of school each year, regardless of the cause, begins to impact student academic performance." 5 days. So the data that's presented in the attendance is 10%. That's 18 days. So 3.5 times the level that affects performance is what we're measuring on. And how are we measuring? Last year, 25% of our students were absent more than 10% of the time. In high school, it was 45%. That's nearly half the kids. Now, I think this is related to the 10,000 kids who passed through 3rd grade not being able to read at grade level. If I couldn't read at grade level, I wouldn't learn. I wouldn't like school. I'd feel it was a burden. I would feel dumb. I would act out. I would quit school. I would drop out, whatever. So attendance and reading, I think, are very related. Now, this is a problem the district's recognized. You talked about it today. There's a task force headed by Dr. Miller Fields to address it. I think this is an area that can be helped beyond the school itself with community organizations. So I reached out to Dr. Miller Fields and offered to see if we couldn't get community organizations to help in this area, whether it's churches or civic groups or clubs or mentors or whatever. I think we can make a difference. So in conclusion, 3 priorities. Science of reading implementation, got to stay on it. Number 2, we've got to figure out something to do with these 10,000 kids. And number 3, work the attendance problem. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Roney. All right, Mrs. Beth Mataroni.
Good afternoon. Scholastic is the world's largest publisher and distributor of children's books. Scholastic hosts about 120,000 book fairs annually, according to the publisher, which began the practice in 1981. The fairs, which generate about $2 million in profits shared with schools in gifts of books, reach about 35 million children annually in 50 states and internationally. Savannah-Chatham County Schools uses Scholastic as a vendor for book fairs in many of their schools. Today, I want to share newly available information on Scholastic as a public service announcement since it may not be known to the board, superintendent, or especially parents. Unfortunately, Scholastic book fairs no longer have the reputation they had in the 80s when they were founded. In October, the following quote was released by the company, quote, "There is now enacted or pending legislation in more than 30 U.S. states prohibiting certain kinds of books from being in schools. Because Scholastic book fairs are invited into schools where books can be purchased by kids on their own, these laws create an almost impossible dilemma. Back away from these titles or risk making teachers, librarians, and volunteers vulnerable to being fired, sued, or prosecuted," unquote. While Scholastic considered making these types of books optional, they have decided to continue to offer these books in their fairs. Georgia is one of these states that has a law restricting divisive concepts such as racism and espousing one's personal political beliefs, which is also reflected in the Savannah-Chatham County Board policy. My question for the board and the superintendent is, what type of screening procedure is in place for removing these books that violate law and policy at each school level before children shop? In addition, Scholastic, according to their own publication, offers 53 gender identity books titles for 8 to 12-year-olds and 8 titles in the picture book early reader level. Gender identity subject matter isn't age appropriate for these respective age children. Again, what is the policy for screening the book fairs for these titles before students attend the fairs? I'll end with a warning and a request. Parents, please be wary of what book titles are being offered in the Scholastic book fairs. You may want to attend with your child or opt your child out. I ask the school board and superintendent to consider other book fair options to replace Scholastic. These other options offer transparency for families, critical thinking skills for students, and fundraising for schools. I will leave you a handout with several options from which to choose. And I'll close with a quote from a librarian in Detroit, Michigan, who switched to an alternative to Scholastic. "What a relief to have a book fair where I don't have to screen every book for questionable content." Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
And I'll leave these with you.
And finally, Ms. Cheryl Gay. I don't think she's here.
She got detained.
All right, thank you. Okay, not everyone at once. Out. I'm sorry, Ms. Hall.
I see some visitors here that I thought had signed up to speak. Were you planning to speak today? Oh, okay. I just want to make sure.
Oh, okay.
Thank you.
Connie doing altar call. I will accept a move to adjourn. Moved by Ms. Grabowski, seconded by Ms. Hoskins-Brown, Dr. Hoskins-Brown. All in favor? Aye. Thank you, everyone.